Welcome to Spill the Tea about weddings with Sheila and Teresa. Hi, I'm Teresa.
Hi, I'm Sheila.
Welcome to Spill the Tea with Sheila and Teresa. Sheila can't be with us today, but instead we've got two special guests. We have got Finley, our barn mascot, who is hopefully going to behave himself, and we have got George from Bee Captured Photography. Hi George, how are you today?
Hi Teresa, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. I think Finley has decided you're his new BFF.
Oh, wonderful.
So we are actually going to talk about pets and photography and all the challenges that pets like Finley present to us. So, you know, George, at our venue, we allow people to bring their dogs and horses, if they want to the venue. So I know what challenges animals can be, but tell us, what challenges particularly do you have with animals when you're trying to photograph them for weddings?
So it's a great topic, especially because obviously we have Finley here, who's a prime example. So a lot of the times what we see is we see some couples that do request pictures of their furry friends to be incorporated into their wedding, which is a phenomenal it's a phenomenal idea. It's a phenomenal gesture to other members of their families, because it's like us, and I'm pretty sure the same thing with you. Our pets are like our family, and we do love them. We do care so much about them. But there are some considerations that we sometimes have to discuss with a couple, just obviously to think about, for their big day. Mainly it's because, sometimes a lot of couples, sometimes they'll see these gorgeous pictures, for inspiration that they'll sometimes send to us. And they're like, we really would like this recreated with our pets, which once again, it's absolutely phenomenal to incorporate your pets. But the things, we'll start off with a couple things to consider is like this. Here we're trying to create, this podcast, where we do talk about, some information. And as you can see, Finley is used to you. Finley has seen us before, but doesn't necessarily mean that Finley is going to cooperate.
I mean, considering, he knows the venue really well. Obviously, he's out here every day and he is very familiar with his training and very familiar with what my expectations are. But it's slightly different today. His siblings are not with him and he's here by himself and he isn't quite settled yet. So I know one of the biggest things we had when my daughter got married, her two dogs were very used to our venue because obviously they visit all the time. And with all those guests around, they were completely stressed out and didn't know who to speak to. They wanted to greet everybody, but then they wanted to be left by themselves. So I'm sure that plays into your difficulties when you're trying to get good photographs. I mean, if you've got a really old dog that's just seen it and done it, I'm sure it's easy. But if Finley's 18 months old, and as you can see, he's exuberant.
Pets are a lot of the way, in the same ways, a little bit kind of like kids, right? Just because grown-ups may want pictures doesn't necessarily mean that kids want pictures, right? Kids want to have fun. Kids want to play. Kids want to peruse and explore. Sometimes a lot of the same the same aspects apply to your furry animals, is especially if they're at a new location, a new venue, or or taking a part in the big day. A lot of new people, a lot of new smells, a lot of new surroundings will obviously get them to be a lot more hyper than they may actually be on a regular occasion. But the big thing is literally the planning for it. As long as couples plan accordingly for it, and they already go into the photo shoot or their wedding with that consideration already, that everything may not go the way it pans out the way they want it. Then it'll give them a clearer understanding of what the outcome is going to look like.
I guess it's all about that communication again, isn't it, really? And understanding that the best plans may not work out.
Yes.
If the dog's really stressed, or they don't settle, or they don't actually want to smile and take pictures,
or even face in the direction that we're taking the pictures.
Right.
But a lot of it also too depends on the owners, because it just like how most parents know how their kids are. You know if your kid is naughty. You know if your kid is rambunctious. You know if your kid is shy. It's the exact same thing with pets. You know if your pet is, if it's been trained properly, if it listens very well. Also, the age, has a lot to do with it. Same thing, kind of like with kids. And most of the times we're always worried with little kids.
Right.
Like two, maybe 2, 3 year olds. Because obviously infants are not going to be walking down the aisle by themselves unless somebody's carrying them. But your 2, 3 year olds, the exact same way. They're just learning to walk. They're very scared of people. It's the same thing with puppies. A puppy is very new, into the world. New smells, like I mentioned, new sights, new people. But you also see it with older puppies. A lot of the times are a lot calmer. They're a lot more relaxed around people. A lot of the times too is like they just, they're already set in their own ways, and if they're very docile, they will listen. They will cooperate. Whereas, like, if you're incorporating your brand new 8-month-old puppy into your wedding, it may not necessarily go the way
No,
you
you
plan.
might want to expect a bit of carnage.
Yes.
Yeah. So a bit like kids, I can remember when my son was, I think maybe 2, he was asked to be the ring bearer.
Yes.
And he took one look at the whole concept and went and sat on my lap, and there was no way, no how he was going to walk down that aisle. And I would imagine that that's similar with a lot of dogs, that you are probably asked to take photographs of the dog
Yes.
coming down the aisle and they think, hell no.
Yes. The other thing too is, like I said, the considerations that you have to take, when you're incorporating your, especially like, let's say a puppy into like a picture. I'll give you an example. Sometimes, couples are like, oh, it would be so great to make my puppy the ring bearer, right? Is that really somebody that you want to trust with your rings?
Yeah,
and I'll
good
give you
point.
an example as to why I say this. I was used as a ring bearer when I was very, very young, and it was probably the worst decision the couple had ever made. Because come the time of the ceremony, we had already practiced. I had been through the rehearsal dinner. So I knew when the preacher was going to say, like, hey, can we get the rings? I did not know that playing around, I had ripped a hole on the inside of my jacket. So I had put the little rings inside, not knowing, that hole was there. And the rings fell into the lining of the jacket.
Oh dear.
So come the time of the ceremony, people can see that I know what's coming up, and I'm starting to panic because I'm like, I can't reach the rings. I don't know where the rings are. To the point where they had to stop the entire ceremony to take my jacket off and then start shaking it and then take scissors to cut, because they figured out that it had fallen in between the lining of the jacket, and then take scissors, from somebody had to run back, go get scissors. So you can only imagine, the turmoil I probably created for that couple because,
I hope that was captured on video. That's
so
all I can-
it was not. No one did video back then. I mean, some couples may think that that's super cute. Other couples may, be
It's
like, oh my
definitely
God.
something you sit back and laugh at 5 years down
So
the
I
line.
laugh at
don't
it
you?
because I'm
Yeah.
just like, but mind you, I don't necessarily know maybe that everybody laughed at it. But it's like I mentioned, it's the same consideration. I mean, your puppy, if left unattended, if nobody is, if you don't designate somebody to help with the puppy, is that somebody that you just want to put, the rings around his neck and Jesus take the wheel, hopefully my rings go down the aisle.
Yeah. If it was Finley, you've got no chance. I mean, he's going to say, oh, what's that smell over there? Let me go and explore. So, but I just think even if you've got somebody looking after them, if they're just going to get stressed or they're going to see mom at the end of the aisle, they're going to want to go down and say, hi, mom, I've missed you, because they love their owners so much, don't they? So,
No, so they do, yes. And we'll cover something along those lines here in a little bit about how they have a mind of their own. And yes, you may pay for a groomer to come in, groom them, wash them, put a cute little outfit. That doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, that that's how they're going to walk down the aisle. I mean, me and Teresa have been here, for a few weddings. And I mean, one of the things that we get a kick out of your horses when we see them out in the pasture, and they're just doing whatever they want, right? And a lot of the time, especially like during the warmer months, what do they like to do on the dirt? They like to roll
Yes,
around.
they
So
do.
Teresa's always in awe when she sees these giant, you know, massive 1,000-pound horses just rolling around in the dirt, like no care in the world, right? So one of the things that we, you know, that we like to bring up is like, if you are going to incorporate a puppy and it is an outdoor type of establishment, do take into consideration that, you know, their paws may get dirty. They may get grass, you know, on their paws. And obviously they're going to want, if they're very close and attached to you, they're going to come, you know, want to come up and do the normal things that they do. I know our puppies, the minute they see us come home, they immediately want hugs. They immediately want attention. They're going to do the exact same thing. And all it takes...
They don't recognize that you've got a nice white dress
yes,
on,
that
do
you
they?
got a, you know, $1,000, you know, wedding dress that you still have to, you know, present, you know, throughout the day. So it is another thing just to consider, or to take into consideration. Maybe whoever is handling your you know, your puppy, before that reveal where the puppy sees you again, you know, wiping down the paws, making sure their paws are clean, you know, keeping that at, you know, in the back of your mind when you do that first reveal with the puppies.
But it's not even that. I mean, even if I'm out, I've gone out somewhere and just got a nice dress on, and I come home and my dogs are excited to see me, my first thought is, don't jump up and put a hole in my dress, because that would be really stressful too, wouldn't it? If suddenly the wedding gown has got a massive rip through it because somebody's exuberant dog jumped up at them. But also the other thing to consider is not everybody in your wedding particularly wants your dog being stressed out and running around. I mean, something that I think is really lovely, particularly at our venue, we're quite blessed with, you know, the different spaces, is having the dog go somewhere quiet and have portraits taken away from everybody else. Don't expect the dog to, I mean, the dog probably knows most of your 100 guests, but not all at once. So I kind of think, you know, going somewhere like at our venue, the Tanglewood Garden is a really nice space to go and have private. So my daughter got married in the UK recently, and they have a very rambunctious dog, worse than Finley. And they actually had their trainer bring the dog to a very secluded part of the venue, asked all of the guests not to come, and they went off and just had private photographs taken so that they got the memory without the stress. And I think that that's something that our couples probably should do, and have a conversation with the photographer about the timeline and the concept and what's practical. I know you had a wedding here not that long ago, and the dog really didn't want to play, and you didn't actually get great photos of the dog. And that's not your fault. It's the dog just didn't want to play that day. So it's certainly something to take into consideration, that they don't always just feel...
So yes, and the other thing that we see is a lot of the times the more people you involve in your pictures, the more distractions the puppies are going to have, which we normally recommend, kind of like what you mentioned, you know, a separation between you and other people. That way the puppy is just, you know, or your whatever furry friend it is that you're bringing, they're normally just used to probably just both individuals. So it's a lot better, and they're going to behave a lot better when it's just those two individuals that they're interacting with. Because when you're trying to do like a larger, you know, wedding party, or you're trying to do, you know, you want pictures, you know, with the puppy maybe mingling during cocktail hour, or them walking the puppy during cocktail hour, you know, yes, because you did get the puppy, you know, dressed up, or you may, you know, the puppy may have a really cute outfit. But like we mentioned, once again, it's a lot of different interactions, you know, with different people, especially if the puppy's never met those people. You know, they're going to have a tendency to just be all over the place, right?
Well, notwithstanding the fact it's also a different space that they're used to, because they probably have never been to that venue before. So all of those smells, I mean, like at our venue, we've got cats. I mean, that's a big smell for a dog to have to deal with and behave. And then the horses as well. But I think something else that's quite important from a photographer's perspective is when our couples decide that they're going to bring furry friends to be photographed, how important do you think it is to be hiring a photographer who's comfortable around animals?
So that's the other thing that I was kind of going to bring up, not necessarily for the photographer aspect, because I mean, we own, I mean, I've talked to you, we've owned pets, I've owned horses, you know, so I'm very comfortable with animals, right? But that is true. What I was going to bring up is more like, sometimes all of your guests are not comfortable with animals. I mean, you know, we have met, I mean, my niece was petrified of dogs, and she's my niece, and she grew up with my dogs. but still was petrified of dogs.
For sure. I mean, particularly, I mean, if you had somebody like Finley who's got a big old smile on his face, which means a big jaw, and he's a big boy, that, you know, you could have guests that were a little bit nervous of
people
them.
are intimidated by bigger
Yeah.
dogs. I mean, we've owned, you know, all the way from, you know, a teacup Chihuahua that can fit in your palm to, you know, we have a Doberman Pinscher. Now, who would you think that people would be more scared of? You know, people would be like, oh my God, the cute little teacup Chihuahua, she's so cute, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, the scary Doberman, like the Doberman is so scary. Believe it or not, the Doberman is the most friendly Doberman, you know, people would ever meet. The terrifying one, the one that would that would nip at you or bite you, is the little teacup Chihuahua.
Yeah.
You know, so that's another thing to consider, you know, when
but
you're
I
planning
definitely
for
think
it.
from a photography perspective, if you think that you want, so for example, we offer the opportunity for them to have photographs with our horse. We had a photographer for my daughter's wedding, and she had already communicated that she was riding a horse into her wedding, and she wanted photographs taken of her with the horse. And the photographer had no clue how to get angles with a horse, because it's a skill, isn't it? I mean, it's not just, I mean, I think that there's this misconception, because everybody has a phone on their camera, on a camera on their phone now, that you can just point and shoot. But actually, to get them looking good is a massive skill. I mean, I can take photos of my horse all day long, but I couldn't do what you do and take great photographs that convey people and horses at the same time. And that's kind of a skill that, I mean, my daughter's photographs were appalling. They were so bad that we actually then recreated her whole wedding with the horse on 3 months later, because they were so poor, because the photographer was scared of horses.
So that's what I would like I was mentioning, the same thing kind of like with puppies, you know, where some people are intimidated by puppies, right? Or by dogs. Some people are allergic to cats, you know. That's a big allergy. But the big thing is, like, I mean, you know, obviously I've taken pictures of your horses. That is a big thing. It's one thing to see a horse in a stable, right? And people are like, oh my God, they're so pretty, they're so beautiful, you know. And yes, they'll take pictures, you know, from afar of the horses in the stable. I have seen it, like you mentioned, where once you bring your horse, like, you know, the shoot we did with you, if you remember, everybody kind of kept their distance. But since I was so used to the horses, I was like, you know, touching them, you know, being interactive with the horse. But you do have people that have, you know, they may have heard a horror story or something like that. And it's different when you actually bring, you know, this 1,000-pound animal out, you know, that's taller than you, you know, a lot more muscular than you. People do get intimidated. They want to keep their distance, right? That is another thing, kind of like what you mentioned. You know, we just had that wedding here recently, and that was the whole thing. It's like, you know, I didn't mind helping with the horse. I know how to handle horses. I know how horses, you know, tend to think and operate. So it is a little bit different in a photography perspective or a videography perspective.
But also even posing with dogs, for example. I mean, to get a good photograph with a dog, you need to be down at the dog's level,
yes,
don't
exactly.
you? So you've got to have a couple who are prepared to get down there and cuddle with the dog, and you can't just stand there and hope because it looks weird and clumsy. But again, you need a photographer who's going to have that vision and understanding.
Yeah, the same thing. I mean, we know that our dogs listen to us a lot better when we have treats. We bring that up when we're talking, you know, to them during the timeline review, and we're like, hey, like, one, we never recommend that it's just the couple that deals with the puppy. We always say have somebody that the puppy or that the animal is familiar with.
Yeah.
And that person, you know, I get it, they may be in your wedding, probably somebody that shouldn't be in your wedding party, but if they're going to be at your wedding, you know, that should be the person that's their sole, you know, contribution to your wedding day.
I 100%
you know, which
agree.
is so much more important than probably somebody in your bridal party, because that person is going to hopefully be familiar with your dog, friendly with your dog, take care of your, you know, your animal. They may already have a lot of interaction with your animal, so it'll help that much more when they come in to help out with the pictures, because while we're taking pictures, while we're taking video, that person can the animal can recognize them and help us, with the posing, gathering their attention. Like we mentioned, bringing treats. Obviously, the puppy already knows who they are. So if they're sitting there waving a treat and they're like, hey, go ahead and sit, it's going to listen to them. It's not going to listen to us, most likely, even if we had treats, because we're new faces. Here's, most of the times they're not even looking at our faces because we have a camera, in front, or we have a camera, holding to take video. So it does help when you have that dedicated friend or those dedicated friends that are coming to, to help you, whether it's with a horse, a chicken, a cat,
we haven't had a chicken. That would be fun.
Yes, we have.
You've had chickens?
Yes. They
That
are.
sounds fun.
They are something else.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that they can't be trained in the same way as a dog can.
No.
So it's quite interesting. But I definitely think that if people do want to bring their dogs, they need to be realistic with their expectations, to know that they might get 3 pictures. They might not get 30 pictures, and the dog probably will get stressed unless it's I guess some dogs are, maybe show dogs or who've been there, seen it and done it and had all of the exposure, but most dogs don't have all that exposure. I mean, my dogs see me and Ian every day.
So,
and
yes.
you saw when Finley came in here how excited he was to say hi. And if you multiply that by 100 people, that's stressful.
And the other thing too is you can get creative with pictures for animals, but that's where the planning comes into place too. And understanding, it's kind of like one of the things that we tell people, we're not family and children photographers. Like, that's not what we specialize. We specialize in weddings and couples. But one of the things that we do tell people when we do see pictures of children when they're being photographed, a lot of the best pictures are not your post pictures where they're like standing next to mom and dad. It's when the kids are playing with their parents, when they're interacting with them. Those are the most genuine and probably most heartfelt pictures that the parents have. It's the exact same thing with a puppy. Like, you can incorporate them in your wedding. Does the puppy like to play fetch? Well, why not incorporate that with it? We can capture pictures of you guys throwing the ball at him, throwing a frisbee, capturing pictures of him dressed, the puppy dressed up in its suit, maybe in midair, catching a frisbee. That picture, I think, would look amazing, right? That's probably the picture that you're gonna, probably print, frame, and be like, because your pet was having a phenomenal time on your wedding day. We know our dogs, well, one of them, the other one she likes to eat worms when we take her outside. That's why she wants to go outside. But our Doberman loves to play fetch. I mean, the minute he sees that we pick up the ball to go play, he starts talking to us, not barking at us, literally like, because he gets so excited. And then we go out there and, Nadia's just having the time of her life. Why not incorporate those aspects into your planning process to get those pictures? Because you can still get some beautiful images where you're having fun, with your pet.
One of our brides had bent down to say hi to the dog, and the dog had jumped up and put its paws on her shoulder. Looked stunning, and it was just so heartfelt. And I don't use that word very often because it's a bit cliche, but it was a really lovely picture. And I think I agree with you that you don't have to expect the dog to be, on parade in a military base. They can just do what they do.
Yeah, like I said, have
and
fun.
capture something else that I think is quite important for couples to come to terms with if they have animals incorporated is they might get dirty. I remember we had a bride who got dirty having the horse, and she was a little perturbed about the fact that her dress was dirty. Well, you wanted the horse. So, and the same, I mean, I know that you can probably, wipe dogs' paws off and such like, but they might kiss you and slobber on your dress, or, it's no different to a child dropping food down you or anything.
Jam or jelly.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of think that if couples want their dogs or horses, we did have a horse wedding a couple of weeks ago. Somebody bought their own horse here, and it was lovely. It was really nice. But the reality is that they're not necessarily always very mindful of the fact that they might be dirty.
And this is the other thing too, like what we tell people, especially when it comes to animals, right? Should they be punished for the way they act? No, they shouldn't, right? Because here's our thing and our perspective. All right, some of the people you invite to your wedding or people that are in your wedding party, act a fool the day of your wedding.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like,
Good point.
can you say, can you punish your puppies because, oh, well, they may get me dirty. Oh, well, they're not going to cooperate. We've been to a lot of weddings where sometimes wedding parties don't cooperate. They don't
Very
want their
true.
pictures taken. I'm too shy. Well, you should have thought about that before you agreed to be a part
Yeah.
of wedding party, knowing that you're a big part of, the couple. We're going to be taking your pictures, and you
Well, the
see them with
reality
it.
is, if they, and this is, I mean, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Finley is a prime example. If when I go home on a normal day, I greet them by letting them jump up and say hi
Yep.
to me, I can only be responsible for that. That's what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
So on wedding day, you can't possibly expect them to think, well, it's different rules because I've got a different dress on.
Yes, exactly.
So that is, something that couples
just a consideration.
yeah,
to think
you just
about.
need to take it into consideration that dogs are emotional animals, and they're going to have those feelings, and they're going to be delighted to see you, and all the things. So I think that certainly from a photography perspective, there needs to be conversations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, the biggest thing is just the planning and the having the expectations of what understanding the expectations of what you're going to get based off of your pet as well. I mean, I told you, when I had Comanche, one of the horses that I owned, I knew for a fact, I was like, once he was done being, ridden, the only person he would listen was to me, right? But once he was done, once he was like, hey, like, I perused you around like you wanted me, now I want to be fed, I want to go out to the pasture and eat my grass, leave me alone, right? But I knew it, where it was different with Dakota. Dakota, I could do whatever it is that I wanted with Dakota. So
Yeah.
those are the things that you also have to understand, is you yourself know your pet's limitations, their demeanor, and what they're going to listen to, what they're not going to listen to. I had a bride one time send me a reel, and she was like, I really would like to do a reveal like this, with my dog. And that's what it was. It was like a first look between the bride and her dog.
Okay.
And it was done really, really good, really beautiful. It came out really beautiful. And I was like, yeah, we can definitely do that, because I was like, that would be awesome. And I was like, will your puppy like sit like that and wait for your command to turn around? She was like, well, no. I was like, well like you have to be realistic with yourself, right? I'm pretty sure that the reason, yes, we both loved the idea of it, was because this dog is so well trained that it literally knew its owner was behind him and did not turn until the owner said, hey, I forget what she said. And yes, the dog then turned around and sat back down and just looked at her. And then she told the dog to come, and then the dog came. But if your dog doesn't listen to you when you tell it to sit, or when you tell it that you want him to do...
That sounds like something you might have to spend the year that you're planning your wedding training. If that's something you want to do, you can train your
yes,
dog.
and you can, but have that realistic expectation. Because then when I asked her, like I said, I was like, will your puppy do that? And she was like, oh, no. I was like, well, how can you send me this idea that you would like to try, already knowing that your dog is dog is not going to sit like
Set
that.
your dog up
So
for
it's not
failure.
going to look the exact same way. So
for
I think
sure.
a lot of times that's what we need to take into consideration.
For sure. Okay, so spill the tea. Would you rather video or photograph animals or children at a wedding?
Animals. Animals.
That's so funny.
No, absolutely.
What's your favorite thing that people have done with their animals when you photograph them at weddings?
A lot of the times, honestly, it's just the outfits that they bought them. I guess I love the outfits mainly because Teresa buys outfits for our puppies.
Okay.
And we do, believe it or not, like, animals do understand that sometimes when they are put in outfits that they get more attention. Kimber, our miniature Australian Shepherd, definitely knows that. So she loves it when Teresa buys her outfits, because she knows that when Teresa puts her in an outfit, whenever we go take her out for a walk, or whenever we take her out, to go see friends and family, that people obviously immediately like, oh my God, you look so beautiful. Oh my God, you look so cute. And it's almost like she looks at him like, yeah, I know.
Oh, that is so funny. So my dogs are definitely farm dogs. Willow, in the hunting season, we put orange jackets on them when I go trail riding, because
the
obviously
hunters.
Willow won't move she stands stock still and just says, I can't believe that you've put, orange is not her color. And she is livid with us. And my boys here, I can't imagine them having an outfit, but maybe we'll get you a bow tie and you can be at a wedding one day, Finn. What do you think? Do you think a bow tie for him?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll try it. Well, I think that that's good to wrap up. Have you got any last minute tips for couples who want to bring their animals to weddings?
So in all honesty, the biggest tip is just making sure that you bring something that they're familiar with, like a toy, and treats. The treats that they love, that you normally treat them when they behave well, or a toy that, you know, really grabs their attention. Those are the biggest things that I could honestly suggest for a couple to bring, that is going to get your pet to at least cooperate a little bit better, rather than not bringing anything, expecting him to just listen to mom and dad, even though they probably are the ones that run the house.
Right. Well, my biggest tip would be definitely to make sure that your photographer, A, knows that you're bringing animals, because that's always a bit of a shock, isn't it? And B, that the timeline allows for the maybe naughty behavior. I mean, you saw when we first got here, Finley was crazy and very overexcited. And by giving him a little bit more time just to chill out, now here he is fast asleep. So that would be my biggest tip. Give the dog the time that they need to be able to settle into the space that they're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But well, thanks for joining us today, George. It's been
thank
really
you.
helpful. And don't forget to like, follow, and share.